I was supposed to be the one in the white dress, the one walking down the aisle. But instead, I stood at the back of her wedding, watching my fiancé smile at my stepsister. And when it was finally my turn to speak, before starting the story, where in the world are you watching from? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear. Let's just say, no one saw that ending coming. If I close my eyes, I can still see the moment like it just happened yesterday. My name is Emma, and I learned the hard way that sometimes, the people who claim to love you most are the ones quietly sharpening the knives behind your back. The flicker of candlelight. The soft clinking of silverware. Mark, sitting across from me at our favorite Italian place, trying not to sweat through his button-up shirt. He was nervous. I thought it was because he hated ordering wine. But then he reached into his coat pocket, slid to one knee, and opened the box. My heart stopped. I remember gasping before I even saw the ring. It wasn't just about the diamond. It was about what it meant. I'd spent so many years feeling like an extra in someone else's story. After my dad remarried, our house felt less like home and more like a boarding school. Polite. Cold. My stepsister Rachel always got the spotlight. And I just learned how to shrink myself. But in that moment, with Mark looking up at me like I was his entire future, I felt like I finally mattered. Like this was my chapter. I didn't know it yet, but that chapter was already being rewritten by someone else. When my dad married Rachel's mom, I told myself I'd make it work. I was 16, and still grieving the life we'd left behind. Our old house, the way my dad used to hum while cooking, how my mom's old perfume lingered in the hallway, gone. Rachel's family was different. Fancy, loud, always trying to impress. She had this energy that filled the room, and I just felt like wallpaper. At first, she was kind, at least on the surface. We'd take selfies together, tag each other in dumb memes, pretend we were close. But deep down, I always felt her sizing me up. Like everything I had, she needed to top. I never thought it was dangerous. Just annoying. But even then, there were signs. Subtle things, like how she'd joke about how lucky I was to land someone like Mark. Or how she'd slide into our conversations, flirt like it was a game. I brushed it off. Family sticks together, right? I didn't realize I was feeding a snake. Growing up, Rachel always got what she wanted. She was the type who could cry her way out of anything. Detentions, parking tickets, even her parents' disapproval. She didn't ask for permission, she expected yes. And people gave them to her. Teachers, boys, my dad. Even when she was wrong, someone else ended up apologizing. We weren't enemies, not really. But we weren't sisters, either. I was the one who stayed quiet during dinner arguments, the one who offered to drive her when she forgot her keys, who listened to her boy drama on repeat. She was chaos. I was calm. And somehow, that made me invisible. When I got engaged, Rachel was so supportive, maybe too supportive. She offered to help plan the wedding. She sent me dress ideas at midnight. She called Mark her almost brother-in-law, like it was the cutest thing in the world. I thought she was just excited. But excitement has limits. What she had was obsession. It started with little things. Mark used to call me every night, even just to say good night. After we got engaged, those calls started to fade. At first, I blamed the wedding stress. We were both swamped, venue tours, food tastings, his new job. I didn't want to be that fiancé, the one who overthinks everything. But then came the excuses. Oh, I had to stay late at work. Oh, Rachel needed help setting up her Wi-Fi. Oh, I ran into Rachel at the coffee shop. We ended up talking for hours. It started to feel off. And not just because of Rachel. Mark changed. He was distracted around me. He stopped talking about the future like it was ours. There were pauses where there used to be passion. I asked if something was wrong. He smiled and said no. But his eyes said everything was. And Rachel, she was always there. Like a shadow I couldn't shake. Looking back, I wish I'd trusted my gut sooner. Because it was screaming. It was an accident. I wasn't snooping, not really. Mark had left his iPad at my apartment. It buzzed while I was folding laundry. Just one message. But when I saw the preview on the screen, my hands started to shake. Last night was perfect. Can't wait to see you again, R. I froze. At first, I thought, no, it has to be someone else. But when I opened the full thread, there was no doubt. Dozens of texts, pictures, flirty little voice notes, weeks' worth of betrayal. Rachel, my stepsister, my maid of honor, and Mark, my fiancé, talking to her like I never existed, like I was some inconvenience they were waiting to get rid of. My knees buckled. I couldn't breathe. I wanted to scream, throw the iPad, confront them both. But I didn't. Instead, I stared at the screen, numb. The person I loved and the girl I had trusted most had turned my future into a private joke. And I was the punchline. I didn't confront them. Not right away. I wish I could say I stormed into the house, threw the ring in his face, told Rachel exactly what she was. But I didn't. Instead, I just shut down. I told Mark I needed space. Cancelled the cake tasting. Stopped answering Rachel's texts. I went quiet. It wasn't weakness. It was survival. Because what do you do when the two people you love most betray you? There's no script for that. Just a gaping silence where your future used to be. I cried in secret. Smiled at work. Told my dad I was just tired when he noticed how pale I looked. Meanwhile, Mark kept pretending nothing was wrong. And Rachel. She acted like she didn't know why I was pulling away. I could have blown it all up right then. But something in me whispered, wait. Let them get comfortable. Let them believe they've won. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't loud. It's planned. I cancelled everything. The florist, the photographer, the deposit for the venue. It all had to go. The worst part. No one even asked why. Everyone assumed I was the problem. Cold feet, someone whispered. Probably got overwhelmed, said another. No one suspected the truth. I didn't out them. Not yet. Let them enjoy their secret, I thought. Let them build a fantasy on the ashes of my heart. When I called Mark, I kept it brief. I said, I don't think we should get married. There was silence on the line. No protest, no heartbreak. Just relief. That was all I needed to hear. Rachel texted me the next morning. You okay? Want to talk? I didn't respond. What would I even say? I was mourning a life I didn't get to live. A wedding I'd planned down to the napkin color. A future that was stolen from me by someone who used to braid my hair and call me sis. But I didn't cry that day. I packed. The whispering started fast. Within days, Rachel's version of the story was everywhere. I was unstable. I couldn't handle the pressure. Mark and I had grown apart. Classic deflection. And because she said it with that bright, innocent smile, people believed her. Even my dad. He sat me down and asked, Are you sure you're okay? Rachel said you've been acting distant. Maybe you're just overwhelmed, honey. It was like being gaslit by the entire planet. No one knew the truth, not because I was protecting them, but because I was protecting myself. I wasn't going to fall apart in front of them. That would be her win. Rachel started posting photos again. Little snapshots with Mark. So lucky to have friends who care. Two hearts. Friends. Right. I watched quietly from a distance, like I wasn't even part of my own story anymore. It felt like she'd erased me and drawn herself in my place. But I wasn't gone. I was rebuilding. Moving out was the hardest part. I left behind everything. My favorite mugs, my books, even the little list I'd kept of possible honeymoon spots. I didn't want reminders. Just clean air. Clean walls. Clean pain. I moved into a tiny apartment across town. No elevator, just 3 flights of stairs and a landlord who didn't believe in hot water after 9 p.m. But it was mine. Every box I unpacked felt like peeling off a layer of hurt. I stopped checking their socials. I deleted our engagement photos from my phone. I walked everywhere, just to feel like I was still moving forward. People stopped calling. The silence used to sting, but now it felt like armor. I didn't owe anyone explanations. I didn't need to defend myself anymore. It was just me. And slowly, very slowly, I started to remember who I was before them. Before the wedding. Before the lies. Not a victim. Not a doormat. Just Emma. I used to love photography. Before Mark. Before the wedding planning. Before Rachel's drama swallowed everything, I'd go out at sunrise and shoot for hours. Nature, people, city streets, little moments no one else seemed to notice. I hadn't picked up my camera in almost 2 years. One morning, I found it in a dusty box. Dead battery, cracked strap. Still, I held it like an old friend. I started taking pictures again, quietly. A couple at the park. A kid feeding pigeons. My own tired reflection in a cafe window. And as the shutter clicked, something cracked open in me. This was mine. Not stolen. Not shared. Not up for debate. Just mine. I posted a photo online, and someone offered to buy a print. Then another. Then a brand reached out. Nothing huge, but enough. Every time I looked through that lens, I saw myself more clearly. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was becoming. One night, I wrote her a letter. Not to send. Just to say everything I never could out loud. I wrote about the betrayal. About the nights I cried into my pillow. About the humiliation of being the girl who got left, lied to, laughed at behind her back. I wrote about the silence. The weight of pretending. The ache of being replaced. And then, I wrote about healing. How I was learning to breathe again. How the world was still wide and bright without her in it. How, despite everything, I didn't hate her. I pitied her. Because anyone who needs to destroy someone else to feel beautiful will never know real love. I folded the letter and tucked it into a box. Alongside the ring Mark gave me. The dried bouquet I never got to carry. The pieces of a life that almost was. I didn't burn it. I didn't throw it away. I kept it. As a reminder of who I used to be. And how far I'd come. Came out of nowhere. I was checking my email late one night, half asleep, half bored, when I saw the subject line, "You're invited to Rachel and Mark's wedding." At first, I thought it was spam. But when I clicked it open, there it was. The date. The venue. A pastel pink invitation with gold cursive writing. I stared at it for a long time. I hadn't spoken to either of them in months. I didn't even know they were officially together, though I guess I should have assumed. What kind of people send a wedding invite to the person they betrayed? Rachel would call it grace. Mark would call it closure. I knew what it really was. A flex. A final twist of the knife. I almost deleted it. But then, something in me shifted. I sat up straighter. My heart wasn't racing anymore. It was steady, cold. I clicked yes. not to forgive, not to forget. But because some stories don't end quietly. Some need a curtain call. I found the perfect dress. It wasn't white, obviously, or black. Too cliché. No, I wore deep red. The kind of red that turns heads when you walk into a room. Confident, bold, dangerous. On the day of the wedding, I took my time getting ready. For once, I wasn't trembling or overthinking. My hands didn't shake when I did my makeup. My lipstick matched my mood, sharp and unapologetic. When I walked into the venue, people stared. Not because I looked out of place, but because they didn't expect me to show up, looking like this. Rachel caught sight of me from across the room. Her smile faltered. Just for a second. Mark. He looked like he'd seen a ghost. Good. I mingled. I sipped champagne. I smiled at people who whispered behind their hands. They didn't know what to say. And honestly, that silence felt like justice. Because they all remembered the girl who disappeared. Now they were meeting the woman who returned. I wasn't even supposed to speak. Rachel had asked one of her influencer friends to be maid of honor. The kind of girl who wore too much perfume and said, literally, every other word. She gave a 5-minute speech about finding your soulmate and manifesting love. It was unbearable. Then the DJ asked if anyone else wanted to say a few words. And something inside me said, now. I stood. The room went still. I took the mic and smiled. Hi, I'm Emma. Some of you may remember I was once engaged to the groom. Gasps. Nervous laughter. Rachel's face went pale. I just wanted to say how truly grateful I am, I said, voice steady. Because nothing teaches you your worth faster than being betrayed by the people you trusted most. Mark looked like he wanted to crawl under the table. Rachel froze, blinking like she was trying to control her expression. I wish you both a lifetime of honesty. You'll need it. And then I handed the mic back. No screaming. No drama. Just truth. Loud enough for everyone to hear. It didn't take long for the whispers to start. Guests leaned in, phones in hand. Someone asked, wait, did she really date him first? Another whispered, is that the same Emma? Rachel tried to laugh it off. Mark kept tugging at his collar, cheeks burning. They tried to keep the reception going. Music played. Champagne flowed. But the mood had shifted. The illusion cracked. Because truth has a funny way of sticking to things. Napkins, wine glasses, smiles. I didn't stay long after that. Just long enough to watch the discomfort ripple through their perfect little night. Just long enough to see Rachel finally look small. Mark tried to catch me before I left. Emma, wait, he said. His voice was low, strained. I turned to him, calm as ever. I hope she was worth it. He didn't answer. Because we both knew the truth. She wasn't. The last thing I saw before I walked out was Mark's smile. Forced, crooked, and terrified. He stood next to Rachel like a man playing a role he hadn't rehearsed well enough. People clapped when they kissed, but the applause was thin. Hollow. The kind that says, we're just doing this for the photos. I didn't stay for the dancing. I didn't need to. Because what they had now was tainted. Not by me, but by their own choices. I left with my head high, red dress flowing like a flag in the wind. Not a victim. Not a villain. Just a woman who refused to be erased. Outside, the air was cool and quiet. I took one deep breath and smiled, not the fake kind. The real kind. The kind you give yourself when you know you've said what needed to be said. Mark would go home to a bride who never stopped competing. And I was finally free. I heard later that Rachel cried in the bridal suite. Not because of love or joy, but because people started leaving early. Because the energy had shifted and never recovered. Because she knew, deep down, that her perfect day had been punctured, not by a tantrum or drama, but by truth. And that truth, it wasn't mine to hide anymore. I used to cry over Mark, over Rachel, over everything I lost. But not anymore. That part of me, the version that needed them to validate my worth, was gone. I didn't cry walking away from the reception. I didn't cry when I saw the unseen wedding moments posted online with comments like, "Isn't that the ex?" Or, "She handled it with so much class." Instead, I smiled. Not to prove anything to anyone. Just because I could. I didn't burn bridges. I didn't scream. Didn't throw wine. Didn't sabotage anything. That's the part that seemed to bother them most. I simply walked away, with grace, with dignity, and with my story intact. Some people say revenge is sweet. But to me, it tasted like silence. Like showing up, being seen, and leaving before anyone could turn me into the villain. Rachel wanted me to disappear. Instead, I became unforgettable. I went home that night, kicked off my heels, and made tea. No drama. Just peace. The kind of peace you earn after walking through fire barefoot and realizing it didn't break you. People called me brave. But I wasn't trying to be. I was just done pretending. A few weeks later, I got a message from a local gallery. They'd seen my photography online, raw, emotional, honest. They wanted to feature my work in an upcoming show. I stared at the screen in disbelief, then smiled. This was the life I almost gave up for a man who didn't deserve it. I bought new lenses. Started booking portraits. My world expanded, frame by frame. One afternoon, while photographing an elderly couple holding hands in the park, I realized something. I still believed in love. Real love. The quiet, steady kind. The kind that doesn't require betrayal or competition to feel alive. And that belief, that was mine to keep, not theirs to destroy. People ask me if I got revenge. I guess in their minds, standing up at that wedding was some dramatic payback. But it wasn't revenge. It was release. Because justice isn't always a courtroom or a scandal. Sometimes, it's walking into the fire and walking out untouched. It's being underestimated, discarded, and coming back whole. Rachel married the man she stole. And I reclaimed myself. Not with noise, but with truth. Sometimes the best revenge is becoming the person they never imagined you could be. If you've ever been betrayed and left behind, just remember, your silence can echo louder than their lies. Drop a comment if you've ever walked away stronger. Don't forget to subscribe for more real-life inspired stories that remind you, you're not alone.